Welcome to episode 151 of The Numbers Game. I'm Jason and I'm joined with Nick and Marty. How are we going today, Marty?
Going really well, thanks, Jace. 2024, very excited. Always thought 2000 was a big year, so 2024 for me is I'm just happy I've lasted this long. So up for a big year, I'm excited. Nick, how are you going, my friend? Welcome back.
Thanks, Marty. Nice and refreshed, I guess. It's good to be back, and it's good to be back at work and ready to rip into another year. It was a long one last year. It was a lot going on for us, so yeah, feeling refreshed and excited about the year ahead, and really excited about some of the stuff we're going to bring to the table in the numbers game. Jace, you look refreshed. How are you, mate?
Mate, doing well. I've been back at work for a couple of weeks, but even though some people don't think working from Bali remotely actually is work, but I assure you, I was logging on at 7 a.m. Bali time, which is about 10 a.m. back here in Melbourne, or most of the East Coast where we do a lot of our work, and working 7 till 3 Bali time, which still meant there was plenty of time to get out and about and enjoy. Where I was staying had cold plunges and saunas, and it was a bit of a kind of a healthy start to the year for Case and I, so very enjoyable. But yes, also super psyched to be back, whether it's the day-to-day world at Future or even the numbers game world that we're planning on rolling out for 2024. I'm excited. I think it was a big, awesome year ahead of us, and really, really excited to crack into it.
I'm pumped.
The best part of my day so far today, guys, was when we were getting ready for the show. And could we be any more in sync and ready for a great year when both yourself, Nick, and Marty sent to get through the same show notes wanting to do an episode on productivity hacks? That's just when you know you're in sync after 150 episodes. Marty, what are you thinking? What have you got for us?
Well, I'm always one at the start of the year. You think about what can you be doing better, and you're drawing off inspiration, and productivity is always such an important factor in business. So it was quite funny. Nick sent through his productivity hacks, and I said, "Can you have a look at this?" And I had the same thing. We were just working off different countries, but we had virtually the same article in 2 different countries. So it's pretty funny. So it must be important if we're both thinking about it. We hope it's important for our audience as well. So the article was 9 CEOs, like productivity hacks of 9 CEOs, and picked up some really good stuff out of this. The first one that I thought was good, free up meeting-free days. Dustin Moskovich from Asana says keep 1 day free a week from meetings. And he had 37 meetings that he runs every week, working 60-hour weeks. But he has to have 1 day free of meetings so you can get real momentum in your day with the work that you need to do. And I thought, yeah, that makes sense. Like, I'm even thinking for our own sales team, where you want to build momentum in your week, and you really need that time to be reflective on what you want to accomplish, making sure tasks are met, and just getting damn work done. I thought that was good. We do have meetings layered over meetings in time in business, and we need to be more productive about that. Do you find that, Jace? Like, just in regard, there's so many more meetings that you have. It's crazy sometimes.
Yeah, at the back end of last year, it was one of the things our senior leadership team brought to the table for Greg and I, was just how many internal meetings we have, and then to pile on the external meetings on top. Like, it was a stupid number by the time we looked at it. So we actually, at the end of last year, did a bit of an exercise as to, well, how many of these meetings are necessary, but how many of them are booked for way longer than they need to be? Can we shortcut them or shorten them down, create set agendas? And if somebody brings something else into the meeting that you're not meant to be talking about, you got to can it and kick it down the road to something else. So a bit of laser focused purpose for meetings rather than having so many of them here, there, everywhere. So, and then, look, this productivity hack was more about meeting-free days. That was something Greg and I have a business coach, Adam, and very early on he described his schedule to us. He looked at Greg and I stressed. This is years ago when we started working with him. We were stressed. We were everyday meetings, back-to-backs, no breaks, wouldn't have lunches. And he's like, well, which day is your meeting-free day? And we're like, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, my week's structured so that on a Monday and a Friday, no meetings. They're his days for whatever can pop up, and you know, might be meet a new prospect for lunch, you know, go somewhere for breakfast, get on top of your emails, whatever it is you got to do, but it's meeting free days. And he, you know, everyone can structure it differently. I think Dustin has no meeting Wednesday. Adam is no meetings Mondays or Fridays, but those days, you know, I've now tried to take Monday and Friday as no external meetings. Obviously, a numbers game recording is very important, so we do a lot of those on a Monday. But yeah, I love it. I think it's an absolute top productivity hack and a great one to start off with. How about you, Nick?
Oh yeah, they're all great points, and the only well, a couple of things to go a bit further on what you said. Another method that I tried, which was actually quite difficult in the end, but was not to have meetings in the mornings. So you work out when your most productive time is, you know, when your brain's really firing, and for me that's the mornings. So you know, I don't take a meeting before 11 because that means I can get it to work. I can spend 2 or 3 hours on the work that I needed to do. And then the rest of the day can be for meetings. And then the next day, you know, you can use that time when you're most efficient from a headspace point of view. That can be difficult when you're obviously dealing with other people who, you know, might have their own time blocks and they might want to meet you in the morning. But if you can kind of run with that as a general rule, you'll generally find you can make it work. I think the other thing to think about too is who needs to be in those meetings. And this comes back to delegation and giving people levels of authority. You often find that in meetings that probably 1 or 2 people that are in there probably don't really need to be in there, and they're just in there because. So I'd have a serious think about whether or not you need to be in those meetings, and making sure that, you know, people are given decision-making ability. So yeah, people aren't going to meetings just for the sake of it.
Yeah, good points. And something that I just want to rekindle this year is probably about 5 years back, I got into the habit of how do you optimize those meetings and doing 20-minute meetings so they are more impactful, especially to external parties. So you really have, you know, a couple of impact points you're addressing and you move on. And sometimes you can feel like, oh, you're not being nice because it's only a 20-minute meeting, but it's how to be most effective with those meetings. And even in your sales teams, if you're doing a catch-up cadence meeting during the week one-on-one, like how can you allocate that's a 5-minute catch-up based on a longer-term weekly meeting that you might have as a sales team. So it's not to put more pressure on yourself by automatically booking 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be that way. But you can book in a 5-minute catch-up, check in, hitting your impact points, and go from there. So certainly it's something I wanted to rekindle this year to be a bit more effective in controlling the meeting process as opposed to being controlled by it. So I think that's something I want to focus on. So I hope that helps. The next one was using downtime for thinking. Sarah Blakely from Spanx, you might have heard of her before. She creates a...
Jace is a big Spanx follower. He brings it up all the time.
Yeah.
But she does a fake commute to have time for uninterrupted thinking, and she brings a notepad to utilize these lulls. So I hope she's not driving when she's got a notepad in the car. But again, yeah, a fake commute because she wants to give herself that time. So she does that on an extension of her driving. But again, I think there are better ways. I mean, it might be just allocating some quiet time in a park or on a train or whatever the case may be. But you really do need to block out thinking time and ways to optimize what you're doing at work, not to just get into the habit of being busy and less effective. You want to utilize that time for strategic thinking and then implementation and planning off that. And I think that's just wise. Nick, I know you've set time to do that. You know, last year you certainly were putting time aside for that.
Yeah, and I guess it goes back to what I mentioned before, and just having that time in the morning for me, just to have absolutely nothing on and think. And there's another guy I've followed online as well. His name's Craig Ballantyne. I think he's known as the most efficient man in the world or something. Trains a lot of high level CEOs, but he talks about that your magic hour being in the morning, very first thing. So this is different again, but you should do an hour to an hour and a half of work as soon as you wake up. And that's flipping everything that we generally talk about on its head, which is, that morning times for you, whether it's meditation, breathing, coffee, reading books, whatever you might do. He goes the other way and says, spend your first hour or an hour and a half with a coffee, whatever that might look like, or a tea, and have a good power session purely based on business thoughts, and then go and do what you need to do. So you might do, 6 a.m. to 7:30, just solid work. And then 7:30 to 8:30 or 7:30 to 9 might be meditation, gym, going to the office at 9:30, 10. So I tried that for a little while. Not sure it was for me, jumping straight into work. But, there's so many different ways you can do it.
I definitely learned that it's not for me. I think knowing what works well for you is also super important. We might get to the end of this app, we're going to drop 9 or 10 productivity hacks, and they're things that you may look to try, but that I was waking up at 6:30, 6:45 in Bali, and then logging in at 7 and starting work. And that's not my usual routine. I usually wake up at 6:30 at home, and I've got that first 2.5 hours of, gym, outdoors in daylight, coffee, taking my time to walk to the office and have that's my morning routine. But being on the computer within 15 minutes of waking up and then trying to get stuck into work did not work for me. But in that downtime for thinking though, and that fake commute, it actually, kind of took me back when I was working in the city, but I was living in the southeast suburbs. I used to have a 1.5 hour commute, depending on train or car. And I would always listen to audiobooks. And I reckon each year I'd get through 20 to 30 books bare minimum if I was listening to books to and from work and taking notes and then going back over them. So that thinking time, or that ability to utilize some downtime for education, training, building knowledge, if you don't have a commute, where are you fitting that time in? So this fake commute idea is actually great in that idea. So, because otherwise you might get home from work and chuck a couple of episodes of TV on, but you have to create better habits than that if you don't have a downtime or a commute. You got to make it.
Yeah, and I'll jump in there because I was the article that I brought to the table, which I was going to read them at the end, but one of them is very much in line with what we're talking about, and it's Philip Britt, who's the MD of Aussie Broadbank. So he lives in Melbourne, Morwell, spends a lot of time driving from Morwell to Melbourne. It's about an hour and a half, I think he said, and he uses that time as business thinking time. So I think like the first thing, and actually this has really made me think, because the first thing I go to when I think about the car is I think about a podcast because I need to get something in my head that I'm learning, or sometimes I think music if I just want to put myself in a good mood. Or there's a couple other business things I listen to. But what he suggested is you use that time just to think. And I've thought, well, what have you actually got in the car? And you actually say, well, this is my business thinking time, whether it's half an hour or an hour, or for me, it's only 20 minutes, but it's still 20 minutes uninterrupted where I can just purely think. And then he gets to the end of his destination and he just writes some notes down or does a bit of a voice note about what he's been thinking about. And I thought that was brilliant because it's an hour and a half of, obviously, you've got to think about where you're going and watch for traffic, but it's an hour and a half of just thinking deeply about your business and your day. So that is really the commute side of it, and making sure that he's using his commute in an effective way versus a podcast or an audiobook, which is also effective, but it doesn't necessarily set your day up. So I thought that was interesting too.
I'll generally do 20 minutes of looking up something businessy on YouTube in the morning, just again to put something in my head for learning. And then I will always write down 1 or 2 concepts that might apply into what I do or where I can benefit the business. Like I've just been in the habit of that for a long, long time. But you're right with the podcasts in the car. I almost let my brain directionalize me sometimes on that because, sometimes you're listening to a podcast, but you're thinking about business and you're not listening to the podcast. So if I find I'm doing that, there'll be days that, I'll just listen to the podcast and happily doing it, or I'll just switch it off altogether, or like you, Nick, playing music. But I like the fact he's got a direct strategy on that. And I think, like anything, if you can create a good habit that works for you, then it's ultra beneficial. So, a little bit of tightening of the screws there, but really interesting stuff. The next one was include deadlines in emails. I thought that was interesting. Birchbox co-founder Katie Beaucamp recommends including deadlines into emails to prioritise tasks effectively. I thought that was good. Just a call to action in the email, so it's directionalized and there's an expectation set within it. I haven't worked out how I'm going to yet implement that, but I actually like the concept from a productivity point of view to bring something into port by a certain time. Otherwise, why am I writing it? Yeah, thoughts on that, guys?
I like that a lot, actually. And again, I often use these podcast recording opportunities to think about my life and business and things going on. And, it's amazing what's jumped into mind. But I've got met an awesome lady at the gym at BFT around the corner. She wants to come on board as a client. We had a few emails back and forward, a couple of meetings. And I sent a proposal back last week of December, for example. Now, I never gave a cutoff date on when I need to know if she's accepting, from a workload point of view, from onboarding, from my team's capacity. And it's now over a month later, and there's been another email back and forward about, this and that and whatnot. But if I'd used a clear date on that email to include a deadline saying, hey, look, I need to know by 14th of January to plan for my workflow for my team. Maybe I would have already onboarded a new client by now. Deposit would have been in the bank and my team would have been working on that work. So I think, creating timeline around things and that deadline or encouraging to respond by a certain date obviously keeps things moving on your end. And I think that's a great one. I mean, even for my own team, I'm going to take this back and suggest to the team, let's make sure we're putting dates on every email that goes out, that when we would like a response by, not in a pushy, negative, nasty way, but just in a both of our time's important. Let's keep things moving.
I think Marty might have brought this up with our sales team earlier today, particularly when you're dealing with clients and you're waiting on information to push a file forward. And Jace, you'd be the same. If you're waiting on things to get people's tax done, all it does is create a bottleneck for the rest of the work that you're doing. Because you can't progress and get things off your desk. So I think if you're dealing with external parties and doing client work and you need to get files off your desk, I think it's absolutely imperative. So yeah, it's a really good one, Marty.
Yeah, and then that's what we did talk about this morning. You as a professional, again, sometimes your clients aren't that way inclined. They have various different processes. So the only thing you can control is your own process in a client interacting with you. And Jace, you hit the nail on the head that you can turn this into a positive and you can make the client a priority. If you get this back to me in 48 hours, I'll make you a priority. I'll get to work on it right away. You've got to build enough momentum and excitement around the dealings and enthusiasm around the dealings. But if you can cut maybe those documents coming back from a 3-week time frame into a 1-week time frame, your efficiencies are huge. And people not only remember the money you save for them, they also remember the efficiencies that how you got there, right, when they're referring on. So I think in regards to linking that to email, that's very easy for me in a sort of a sales orientation. But yeah, I'm just going to consider that as a bit of a superpower. So the next one, streamline communication. This is from Elon Musk, your friend, Nick. Suggests skipping hierarchy structures and allowing direct communication to where the problem or opportunity needs to be addressed to enhance efficiency. I love that. I love not going through necessarily. Now, this is why probably Elon will be in jail too, Nick, so I take that on board. But I like the idea of going to where the problem's going to be solved rather than have to, circumnavigate hierarchy to get to that point. I think about how much time could be saved, and just to me, that's just ultimate efficiency. So yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, it's awesome. I guess also links back to the meeting hack. If you don't need to be there, why would you be there?
Good old Elon.
Just go around it.
Just go around it. Get to where the job's going to get done. Still not been in the clinker yet, so we'll see if that happens this year, mate. Reduce email volume. This is from Jeff Weiner. I was going to say Wiener, but I don't think that's appropriate. Jeff Weiner, CEO of LinkedIn. Interesting. Send fewer emails to receive fewer emails, promoting a more manageable inbox. I think this is a really good one in when you're writing an email, thinking about, is this email going to be impactful or am I just sending an email? It's I think it just makes you think a bit more strategically about the impact before sending something. That's what I take away from that one, rather than it just be, sending a bunch of emails that just has a bunch of emails coming back, and where are we getting to? So really being hard on yourself when you're sending an email that it's going to make the most amount of impact for what you're trying to focus on and achieve. That's what I took away from that. But I like that because, again, just fluff's not being sent about and propagating into more fluff. So I really like that one.
To build on that as well, if you're going to reduce email volume, but you still want to have a great relationship and great communication with a client, can we still pick up our mobile phone these days and call someone and say hi and ask them how they're going? Because I've seen a changing of the times over the years has been less phone calls, more emails, less phone calls, more, do we want to set up a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting, back forward, email, find a time. And before that's happened, there's another 20 or 30 emails that have gone back and forward, rather than just pick up the phone and try and catch someone for that 5 minutes to say, hey, thinking about doing this, how's your business going? Do you think this would help you? Yep, cool, we'll do it. Bang, done. So we've started this year and the end of last year, Greg actually turned to a lot of the team and said, a challenge for January, I want you to call 3 clients each. Now across 20 of our accountants and cloud advisors, all of a sudden 60 of our clients, the aim was to get them a phone call by January. It might flow over into February, but it's been one of those months. But all of a sudden, those phone calls can lead to learning about our client's life and what's going on, building a relationship, but it's not an email that feels cold and impersonal where you're going, hey, hope your year started well, please reconcile your file, bye. No, let's bring phone calls back. And I actively encourage clients as well. I mean, we do like you calling our office and saying g'day and letting us know what's going on, especially things like, if you are going to buy a new house, or if you're buying an investment property, or if you're buying a car. A lot of these decisions clients make, and then after the fact, they call their accountant or their advisor and say, oh, I've just bought a house, or I've just bought this. I hope I made the right decision. So we'd rather get the phone call and know what's going on than be kind of left in the dark.
Not to mention the efficiency side. Like, you can go back and forth on an issue all day. Someone comes back an hour later to your email, then you go back to them an hour later if you're checking your email, versus a 5-minute phone call where you could probably get the original email sent, obviously vocally, and then all their questions come back and you answer them, and within 5 minutes it's done and dusted, versus this back and forth trying to get where both parties are satisfied. So I think the efficiency is something big to think about with emails too, or lack of, particularly when it's back and forth with questions that need to be answered.
Yeah, and you're building, like you said, depth of relationship, and we were even talking about when's the most appropriate time to call, so you can actually get to the client in the dealing. So it might be on the back end of lunch, 12:30 to 1:30. It might be 5 o'clock to 6 p.m. in regards to getting them on their way home from work. So we were even talking about optimizing this morning where we can get that contact point to actually, be able to talk to the person rather than just getting a message. And look, people will have preferences again, but I'm a big advocate for that style of communication. I love talking to clients because you learn so much. So it's really, the next one was strategic to-do lists. Brian Chesky, Airbnb CEO, starts the day with a comprehensive to-do list, grouping similar tasks and focusing on a few significant actions for better outcomes. I really like this. I use block times. So I'll block certain types of work so I can get that work done. So I don't know what you guys utilize, but for me, blocking times for certain things that I need to do, and I'll try and do certain similar tasks in those block times. And I always leave a couple of hours during the day for chaos theory. There are things that come up that just need to be dealt with. So you can't be over stringent on it, but I think it's important to allocate times for specific tasks during the day, best you can. Yourself, Jace, on that, what do you do?
Look, to be honest, did you just use the word chaos? Because
chaos theory. Yeah,
chaos theory. Yeah, it's it feels like there's no theory; it's just chaos. Look, fortunately, I have an exceptional PA, Rebecca, who absolutely runs and manages my life to within an inch of its life. Like sometimes like it feels like, I can't step a foot out of line without Beck knowing about what I'm doing and where I'm going. But that's also done really strategically, like as Brian Chesky said, grouping similar tasks. So, if there's particular meeting on a certain thing, like let's say our internal WIP meetings, we've got 3 teams across the accountants, a team of bookkeepers, and then the admin. We try and do all of our WIPs at on a one day back to back, so that we've got all the information at the same time and get it done. So yeah, that grouping really helps too. So that you're getting in the zone for a particular thing, you get it done and out of the way, then you can move on to something else. So I definitely find that works really well.
Nick, did you have another productivity hack there from what you were looking through this morning?
Yeah, I've got a couple. So obviously I read a very similar article, but based on Australian CEOs. And a lot of them overlap, but there's some good points in here. Paul Robson, CEO of MyOb. Jace would probably know who Paul is. Again, some overlaps are talking about meetings, but he's actually moved all of his 1 hour meetings to 45 minutes and all of his 30-minute meetings to 20 minutes.
I like that.
So what it does, he uses that 15-minute or 10-minute gap to write follow-up emails and then consolidate his thoughts. So his theory is it makes a massive difference to my productivity and removes a lot of build-up of actions that can happen during the day. So you're leaving that 15 minutes or 10 minutes if it's a 30-minute meeting to take care of some action. So I really like that. And, back to your point, Marty, it condenses the meeting time as well, which means there's no stuffing around.
Yeah, that's great. I've been doing quarterly appraisals with the sales team at the moment, and I've left 30 minutes on the back end of those meetings to complete the full appraisal, whereas usually I just go into appointment after appointment and then have to regroup on the back end and complete. So I found that's been really useful this time around, that I can actually just put the cap on the bottle and finish off that particular appraisal and keep the momentum in the process. So little things like that, and just shortening those timings on those meetings slightly just allows me to get to that completion point overall in a quicker time frame. So I've really enjoyed that. That's worked much more effectively than what I did in the past in having to rekindle the ideas. And I've forgotten some of the ideas, when I have to revisit a day or two later. So yeah, I love that point.
Yeah, it's a good one. Cynthia Scott, CEO of Zip. So she had a couple of good ones. CEO of Zip. She listens to audiobooks and podcasts at 1.25 or 1.5 times the usual speed. I've done that in the past at 1.25 times. You barely notice a difference, as in when listening to it. So I found that really cool. And the other one she said, which is advice from her sister, talking about to-do lists, and she works on the 3 Ds, which is ditch, delay, or delegate. So she looks at the to-do list, and if it's too long, what can I ditch, what can I delay, and then what can I delegate? So a couple of really good points there from Cynthia.
Big fan. And, I think naturally, just thinking about I do that sometimes. If I look at my day a couple of days in advance and see that it's jam-packed, it's that natural decision of what can I avoid, like not actually go to? What can I ditch? What can be delayed and kicked back a few weeks? Like let's say, a recruiter's found their way into my diary and wants to meet with me to talk about recruitment. Hey, maybe I can delay that. That's not super urgent right now, and then delegate. Bang on, is that a me task or is somebody else more capable in my organization and I can delegate to them? And usually that's the thing. I mean, anything I do delegate, it's because there's someone way more capable and better at it than what I am. So it just makes sense.
And I want to be focusing on, the goals I want to accomplish in the business. So to me, to focus on key tasks is the key. And anything else that can be delegated, ditched or delayed, that's going to fit that bill. So love it. Really love it.
A tool for people out there. So this is Christina Keneally from the City Children's Hospital Foundation. Again, talking about meetings. The way she thinks about it is, number 1, I want to be in the meeting. Number 2, I want to run the meeting. And number 3, I don't want to be in the meetings anymore. And that's the stage of that's stages through your career. But they recommend a tool called Decisions, which is a Teams-based app that makes meetings more effective. So Decisions is a team-based app that integrates with Microsoft to create more effective meetings. Decisions is great for building agendas collaboratively, recording decisions, creating minutes, assigning tasks, gathering feedback, and storing documents in the right place. So, Jason, I know you're a big tech man. Have you heard about or looked at Decisions?
No, but I've already got the browser open on it to save for later and send through to Greg. We've been heavily using Fireflies, which is an AI meeting tool which records notes during the meeting and sends actions afterwards. So that's been really powerful. You can sit there for a 1 hour meeting and, okay, I'll do this, you do that, I'll do this. And you get to the end and go, geez, I hope somebody was taking notes and I hope I wrote down everything I said. And this beautiful little AI app then sends a meeting summary with the actions. Jason said he would do this. Greg said he would do that, and it spits it out. But that, just having a look at Decisions, it's more the prep work pre-meeting. Getting organized, having an agenda, people collaborating on what they want to achieve out of the meeting. If all of that's organized before you get in the room, there's probably a lot more likely that meeting's going to be more valuable and get to the point quicker and, saving everyone time if there's been a bit of prep work that goes into it.
Yep.
Looking at now as well, it looks like it's doing a bit of that AI stuff too, of taking the notes and spitting out the stuff afterwards.
Yep.
So Decisions for Teams is something I'll definitely be looking into.
And last one, which goes beyond business, but James Thornton from Intrepid Travel, December 2022, he deleted all social media apps just to see what he missed, what he needed, what he didn't miss. He's since reinstalled LinkedIn and Instagram, but never reinstalled Facebook and Twitter, and thinks he's got 30 minutes to an hour back in every day by doing that. He's also, in a much better headspace and a lot happier. One of the things I did a while ago, I can't remember where I heard this, but I found myself getting agitated on Instagram or social media pages. I'd look at things and I'd be like, this person's full of it, or this person really agitates me. So I'm in a habit now of anything where I get negative thoughts, I just delete and unfollow those people, because I found that I was looking at stuff where it was putting me in a bad mood. So that's something I've done, but I think I'm going to give this a crack and just see the impact over a month and go, okay, well, what have I missed? What do I need back? What don't I need back? But I think that's a simple one you can take beyond business. But yeah, thoughts?
I'm in a panic because you send me all those great funny memes, and I do the same to you. So I mean, there goes my 10 p.m. to 10:30 p.m., mate.
Yeah, it's true. But for me, straight away, I went Facebook, because
same here.
I don't look at Facebook. For me, it's Instagram, and I do divert to Facebook sometimes, but I don't know why. Like, everything that gets sent is generally on Instagram, because Instagram has become a place where all of our mates send stuff memes, right? We've all got similar kind of. We're on a similar kind of humour, so it's quite fun. But Facebook, I think, is just there for the sake of it now. I'm actually thinking about deleting that today.
Yep. Yeah, I just looked up my app time, and while Facebook and Twitter's not huge, there's still over a week there's 5 hours over a 7-day period across both Twitter and Facebook. So it's just habit to open it up and scroll through it. When I could be doing something completely different. So I'm also going to take that on board and remove Facebook and Twitter from my phone. I think that's a good one.
Jace, how are you going to go with saying no this year? What are you going to do this year, mate?
Mate, I thought we were skipping over that one. I saw it in the notes and you didn't do it. I'm like, I've got away with getting picked on here. 2024 is the year of Jace learning to say no. We didn't have it in the predictions at the end of the last episode, which was our predictions, but I will definitely be better at saying no. Greg and we've got a theme this year, Greg and I, for the business, and it's consistency. or as Greg says, consistency. We just want to keep doing good things for good people. We want to be consistent. But to be able to do that, I do need to be able to have the time to focus on the business and focus on what's important, as we grow and get bigger and have more team members and more clients. But, if I say yes to everyone and say yes to trying to help everyone, I'm going to either break myself or break the team. So choosing to say no to some opportunities that aren't right for me and our business, and that's personal life and business life. It's a lesson that I think if I don't learn it soon, I will hit burnout and break. So it's more about being self-conscious and learning. And, Nick, I think, Nick, you told me maybe 2 years ago that I need to learn to say no. It's been a long time coming, and it's been a continued struggle. So, from a productivity hack point of view, learning to say no, that's probably the one that I'll take on board as my biggest one to focus on this year.
Good.
Great work, legend.
That's it for me.
Love it.
As far as productivity hacks go.
Yeah, well, guys, look, I'm absolutely rapt to be back for another season. It's 2024. The numbers game will go strong and have an absolute belter. I'm not going to mention the 200th episode because we've just raised the bat at 150. So, it's still early days, but we are back. We are firing. Thank you, Nick and Marty, for a fantastic episode on productivity hacks. And until next time,
have a great year, everyone. Game over.